The ocean kept the pieces we couldn't. Her throat closed before the scream could rise. Ellie Harper's lantern slipped from her trembling hands, the paper catching on the sea breeze, the flame flickering like a heartbeat that didn't know whether to keep living. It tumbled once, twice, and then fell, hissing into the black water below the pier. The sound was small. The silence after wasn't. Finn Callahan froze mid-laugh, barefoot on the wet planks, salt wind curling his dark hair. For a second, his lungs forgot what to do. Don't move. If you move, she'll cry. But Ellie was already crying, quietly, the way she always did, chin up, tears refusing to fall, as if gravity itself had to ask permission. He took a step closer. The lantern's reflection still burned on her skin. "It was supposed to mean something," she whispered. Finn's chest ached. "Everything you touch means something to me." The town's July carnival murmured in the distance. Bells, diesel, pine, popcorn grease. Salt Haven breathing in its sleep. The smell hit him. Pine and diesel. It always did this. Dragged him back to the last summer he'd ever have her. He reached for her wrist. "It still does." Ellie shook her head, curls brushing the collar of his flannel. His flannel, too big for her. Sleeves rolled until they hid her shaking hand. "It picked us, Finn, and then it fell." A single wave slapped the pier like punctuation. He looked down, half expecting to see the light still floating, refusing to drown. But it was gone, like everything else in this town that pretended to be small enough to keep. Ellie's breath hitched. "If I blink, will he disappear too?" He could hear her heartbeat in the space between words. Say something, anything. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out the small glass pendant she'd made that spring, the one shaped like sea glass, but clearer, more fragile. He looped the thin chain around her neck again, careful, reverent. "Then we'll light another," he said. She swallowed. "And when that one falls?" Finn smiled, but his scar, just below his jaw, the one she'd kissed after the bike crash, burned. "Then I'll dive after it." The lie tasted like salt. He wanted to tell her that forever was already happening right here, in the hush after a broken light. But he just stood there, watching the reflection of her face in the water, the way the waves distorted it, as if the ocean couldn't stand beauty without trying to keep it. Behind them, the carnival music swelled, a fiddle gone soft with distance. Fireflies blinked in uneven Morse code. Ellie turned toward him. "Finn?" "Yeah?" Her voice was so small he almost missed it. "Promise you won't forget what it looked like, the light, before it went out?" Finn's pulse stuttered. "I couldn't forget you if I drowned trying." "I promise." And when she smiled, half broken, half believing, it felt like a vow neither of them would survive. Chapter 2. Salt water in the wound. Some promises dissolve slower and salt. The water bit first, always did, cold enough to carve his breath into mist, cold enough to keep him honest. He dove beneath the pier until the moon fractured overhead, 1,000 silver shards on black water. He could still see the ghost of the lantern's light behind his eyelids, still hear Ellie's voice asking if light could drown. He wanted to tell her it couldn't, but he'd seen enough fishermen's funerals to know better. When he surfaced, she was there on the rocks, legs tucked under her like she was afraid the sea might take her too. Her hair clung to her cheeks, and the hem of his flannel was soaked. He climbed up beside her, breathless, shivering. The air between them was electric with everything unsaid. "You didn't have to jump," she murmured. "You said you wanted the light back. You didn't find it." "No." Her eyes flicked to his hands, raw, red from the salt. She touched his knuckles, gentle as sea foam. "You'd bleed for anything you think I want," she said. He almost told her, "Only for you." Instead, he looked at the horizon where the first blush of dawn was trying to wake. The town still slept, Salthaven wrapped in fog, the buoys quiet, the tide pulling secrets out of the dark. He whispered, "You're leaving, aren't you?" Her breath hitched. "I have to." Translation: "I'm terrified you'll stop me." She should have lied better, but her left hand trembled as it always did when she tried. She clenched it in the sleeve of his flannel, hoping he wouldn't notice. He did. He always did. Finn's scar caught the pale light. She wanted to touch it, to smooth the ache away, but if she reached for him now, she knew she'd never let go. "You'll write, right?" she asked. "Yeah. And you'll paint?" She nodded. To stop the dreams, to remember how not to drown. The ocean exhaled, a soft, heavy sigh, and somewhere in the distance a gull cried like an unanswered prayer. "Finn," she whispered, "if we meet again—" "We will." She smiled, broken. "You don't know that. I know the tide always comes back." He leaned closer, salt and air and everything she would spend the next decade trying to forget. And when he kissed her, it wasn't fireworks or songs, it was survival, the taste of salt water and promise, the taste of goodbye wearing a disguise. She didn't say stay. She couldn't. Instead, she pressed her forehead to his, breathing him in, memorizing the shape of his breath. "Don't forget, don't forget, don't forget." But the ocean already had her name in its mouth.
Chapter 3. Letters We Never Mailed. Some words live longer when they're never read. Late August 2011. 2 weeks before Ellie leaves for art school in Boston. The air tastes of rain and low tide. Salthaven's summer tourists are gone. There's a hollow oak behind the Callahan boathouse, their secret place since they were 10. They've been hiding notes there all summer. Ellie's point of view. She paints the tree in her sketchbook, trying to memorize its bark pattern. She finds Finn's latest folded letter, unsent, unaddressed, but heavy with what he can't say. Finn's point of view. He's at the dock writing another poem, thinking of what can't fit in envelopes. His scar burns when he writes her name. The meeting. She comes to return all his letters before leaving. The act feels like betrayal. He reads the truth in her trembling hand. The kiss. Under the oak. Rain beginning. First kiss tastes like salt and goodbye. The keepsake. She gives him the sea glass pendant. He puts it around her neck instead. It belongs where I found it. Endnote. They both leave new letters in the hollow. Neither ever mailed, both rediscovered 20 years later. The sky was bruise-colored, heavy with rain that refused to fall. Ellie Harper sat cross-legged in the grass, sketchbook open on her knees, graphite smudging the side of her hand. The oak loomed in front of her. Their oak, hollowed in its center like a wound that had learned to breathe. Inside that hollow, folded notes, some yellowed with time, some ink-blurred from humidity. The paper smelled faintly of salt and cedar. She'd written him so many times, trying to find words that didn't sound like, "Please don't let me go." She unfolded the last one. Finn's handwriting leaned right, as if it were trying to reach her faster. "Dear you, because I can't say your name. If love is a tide, I'm the shore that keeps pretending it's not coming back. Your name is the only prayer I know by heart. F." She pressed her thumb over the last line until the graphite left a mark on her skin. Why does he make even pain sound like something holy? Her left hand trembled. She closed the notebook to stop it. The wind carried the faint scent of pine and diesel from the docks. For a second her knees went weak, the way they always did when memory hit too fast. Summer nights, the carnival lights, his voice in the dark saying her name like it was a secret only the ocean could keep. She whispered, "Stop it, Allie," but her throat didn't listen. Finn sat on the edge of his father's lobster boat, a half-empty notebook balanced on his thigh. The dock creaked under him, and the air tasted of iron and salt. He rewrote the same line 12 times. "If I tell her to stay, she will, and I'll hate myself forever." His scar throbbed like a heartbeat out of sync. He dragged a thumb across it, old habit, and looked toward the tree line. Somewhere beyond the fog, the oak waited. So did she. He tucked the notebook inside his jacket, grabbed the pendant from around his neck, the smooth green glass catching what little light the day offered. He pressed it to his lips. The taste of salt was the same every time. Communion, confession, both. Maybe she's there already. She was. Rain began soft, then steadier, tracing lines down the bark. She turned at the sound of his footsteps, heart racing like it remembered before her mind did. "You came," she said. "I always do." He stood close enough that she could see droplets in his hair, could feel the tremor in her fingers return. "You left something," she said, holding up the folded paper. "I leave everything here." "I can't take these with me." "Then leave them," he said quietly. "Maybe the tree will keep what we can't." The first thunder rolled in the distance. For a heartbeat they just stood, rain between them, the sound of it whispering, now or never. She stepped forward. He didn't move. When she kissed him, it wasn't practiced. It was desperate. Rain and breath and salt, her hand gripping his collar like an anchor. His fingers tangled in her wet hair. It was everything they'd said in letters and everything they couldn't. When they broke apart, she was crying, and the rain couldn't hide it. "Finn," she started, "don't. If I don't, I'll never go. Then don't go." Her heart split clean down the middle. "If I stay here, I'll drown too." She unclasped the sea glass pendant from her neck and pressed it into his palm. "You found this, so you keep it." He looked at it, the faint gold flecks, the shape of the ocean made small enough to hold. He shook his head and looped it back around her neck. "It belongs where I found it." Their foreheads touched one last time. "Promise me," she whispered, "you'll keep writing. Only if you promise you'll keep painting. Deal." She left first. He stayed until the rain stopped, listening to the hollow fill with the sound of water dripping through leaves. Then he reached inside the tree, left one more note. "For when you come back, I measure years in the spaces between your letters I never sent." Chapter 4. The Future We Couldn't Name. We loved each other in different languages, and neither learned translation. The city smelled wrong. No salt, no pine, just rain on asphalt and coffee grounds baked into the summer heat. Ellie Harper kept the window open anyway, hoping for even a whisper of the ocean. None came. On her dorm desk sat an unopened envelope, Finn's looping handwriting across the front. She hadn't meant to stop replying. At first it was timing, critiques, assignments, exhaustion. Then, one day, the words simply didn't fit in the tiny lines of notebook paper anymore. She stared at the letter like it might speak first. "You're still breathing him, even now." Her roommate's laughter drifted through the hallway. She turned the pendant between her fingers, sea glass cool, chain warm from her skin. It still smelled faintly of home, of boat diesel and wind. Her left hand trembled. She clenched it tight until the shaking stopped. At her easel, a half-finished painting waited, the Salt Haven Pier, washed in twilight. 2 silhouettes. She could never get the second one right. his shoulders, his stillness. Every brushstroke was a scream she couldn't voice. A text buzzed on her phone. Unknown number. She opened it. Callahan's market burned down. Everyone's okay. Thought you'd want to know. May. Her knees buckled. Pine and diesel. Instant 2011. The smell rose in her mind so strong she almost tasted it. Finn's jacket, the wharf at dusk, the flare of lanterns. She sank to the floor. Don't cry. He's fine. He has to be fine. But the tears came anyway, salt on her lips like a tide that refused to forget. The fire hadn't touched the boat, but the smoke had coated everything in ash and memory. Finn Callahan stood in the blackened remains of the market, turning a charred buoy over in his hands. The air smelled of pine and diesel. His scar throbbed. He hadn't heard from Ellie in 3 months. He'd kept writing anyway, each letter tighter, smaller, like he could shrink the distance if he folded it enough times. You said forever at 16. Did you mean until reality caught up? When the storm rolled in that night, he dove anyway, into the cold, into the ache. Because every time he stopped fighting, the silence screamed her name. Ellie. The next morning, she mailed her first letter in months. No flourish, no poetry, just ink and apology. Finn, I don't know how to be 2 people at once, the one who dreams and the one who stays. Please forgive me if I can't come home yet. E. It never reached him. Salt Haven's post office flooded that week, the envelope dissolved in river water, her words smearing into a ghost of blue. By the time she found out, he'd already stopped writing. And somewhere under the pier, the tide carried both their letters away, merging ink into something the ocean could keep.
Chapter 5. The Silence That Swallowed 10 Years. Distance is just silence wearing a clock. Ellie, New York City, 2021. The city never stopped talking, but none of its sounds belonged to her. Ellie Harper's studio was all concrete and northern light. She painted until the walls shook with color, until the ghosts quieted for a while. Every brushstroke was still a scream she couldn't voice. On one shelf sat a cracked mason jar labeled Salt Haven Sand. Next to it, the sea glass pendant, split down the center. She hadn't meant to break it. It happened the night she found out Finn had stopped answering. She'd thrown it against the floor, shouting, "If you won't fight for us, I can't keep this." The shards glittered like tiny drowned stars. Later, she swept them into her palm, blood mixing with glass dust. Some wounds cut both ways, she thought. Now, 10 years later, she still smelled turpentine and salt water in her sleep. Sometimes she woke gagging on the memory of Taffy from the pier. Sometimes her left hand trembled so hard she couldn't hold a brush. But she kept painting, boats, buoys, horizons that never ended. Every exhibition sold out. Every canvas looked a little more like him. Finn, Kodiak Island, Alaska, 2021. Night there lasted forever. Finn Callahan worked the crab boats now, a pen and notebook tucked inside his waterproof jacket. When the storms came, he pressed the sea glass shard, the one he'd found the night she left, between his teeth. The taste of salt was communion, forgiveness, punishment. Sometimes when the buoy bells wailed through fog, he woke screaming her name. The scar along his jaw burned until he whispered, "She's safe. She's gone. She's safe." He tried dating, tried silence, tried poetry. Only poetry stayed. Page 47 of his notebook was tear-stained. The ink there read, "I measure years in the spaces between your letters I never sent." The captain said he talked in his sleep, whispering a girl's name the ocean already knew. Ellie. Opening night, a stranger left a thrift shop book on her display table. Callahan's Poems, self-printed, 2020. Her breath vanished. She opened to page 47. The tear stain was still visible, salt recrystallized into tiny constellations. She pressed her palm to the words and felt her pulse answer. He's alive. Outside, New York traffic roared like waves. She closed her eyes, the scent of pine and diesel flooding her lungs, and whispered his name for the first time in 10 years. It felt like prayer. Chapter 6. The Thrift Shop Ghost. Sometimes the past finds you disguised as a bargain. The thrift shop smelled of dust and rain-leaked cardboard. She ducked in to escape a storm, not fate. Rows of second-hand memories sagged on wooden shelves, chipped mugs, forgotten Polaroids, a typewriter with one key missing. And there it was, a thin poetry book, same as before, Callahan's Poems. She picked it up, thinking it was déjà vu, until she saw the note tucked inside the front cover, scrawled in the same slanted hand. If you ever read this, it means I never stopped trying to send it to you. Her knees gave out so fast, the clerk startled. She sat on the floor, heart pounding like surf against rock. He's still writing. Page 47 still bled salt. Her thumb smeared the stain, and she whispered, "Thin." The bell over the door chimed. The scent of pine and diesel blew in with another customer. Her chest seized. For one heartbeat, she thought, him. But it was only a delivery man. She clutched the book to her chest, trembling. The clerk asked if she wanted a bag. "No," she said. "It's already home." Outside, thunder rolled low over the East River. Rain slid down her face, but the tears had started first. That night she packed. The studio walls echoed with buoy bells from the harbor, her paintings flickering in lightning like windows back to Maine. Finn. Salt Haven, 2031. He had come home that spring. The sea had taken his captain, and the company folded. He told himself he'd stay only long enough to repair the boat. But Salt Haven hadn't changed. The same warped docks, the same gulls, the same hush before rain. He wrote every night at the same table in Callahan's rebuilt market, the one his father had reopened before passing. When tourists wandered through, he sold them copies of his self-printed book. None of them noticed the dedication page. For E, who taught me silence, has a color. He didn't expect her to ever see it. Some loves, he'd learned, didn't fade. They just waited under scar tissue. Then one afternoon the doorbell rang and a gust of city air rushed in, tasting of turpentine and salt. He looked up. She stood in the doorway, rain-slick hair, paint-stained hands clutching a copy of his book. Their eyes met across 20 years. Recognition hit like a riptide. Neither moved. Her voice barely reached him. "Still fits," she said, touching the repaired chain around her neck, gold-veined now, the pendant she'd fixed before coming. Finn's scar burned. "You kept the broken parts?" Translation: You kept me. Chapter 7. Bonfire Embers, 2031. Recognition burns slower than forgiveness. Finn, Salt Haven Beach. The town reunion bonfire cracked in the dark, sparks lifting like fireflies trying to find their way home. Finn Callahan stood near the edge of the crowd, smoke curling into his beard, his heartbeat too loud in his ears. Salt Haven hadn't changed, but the faces had. Everyone older, softer, edges blurred by time.
He wondered if she'd come. Don't hope. You'll drown in it again. Then he saw her, Ellie, barefoot on the damp sand, light from the flames painting her skin in gold and shadow. The sea glass pendant caught every flicker. The world tilted. 20 years of silence collapsed into a single breath. She walked toward him slowly, like she was afraid he might vanish. Didn't think I'd see you here. I almost didn't come. The wind shifted. Pine and diesel from the nearby pier hit her, and her knees almost gave out. He saw it, the same weakness that used to pull her under memories. He steadied her with a hand on her elbow. The contact was electricity, memory, ache. You okay? Just remembering. Yeah, I do that a lot. Someone handed them mugs of cider. They didn't drink. The fire popped. Sparks drifted upward like the lanterns they once lost. You still write? You still paint? Every day. He smiled. Small, the kind that hurt. Guess we kept our promises. The ocean whispered nearby, and she realized she'd been holding her breath since seeing him. His eyes were the same storm gray, only tired now, like they'd been staring at the horizon too long. She reached out, touched the edge of his flannel. He was still wearing one, the same pattern as before. You kept it, she murmured. Didn't have much else that felt like home. Her throat tightened. I thought I broke everything. You did. So did I. The fire reflected in his scar, making it look molten. Finn, she began, but the word cracked in half. He shook his head gently. We've got time now. No hurry. The crowd behind them laughed and sang old songs, but their world had gone quiet. For the first time in 20 years, she let herself look at him fully. The wrinkles at his eyes, the roughness in his hands, the way he still carried her ghost in his posture. And when he smiled, hesitant, real, it felt like sunrise after too many winters. Maybe, she whispered, forever just took a little longer to start. The bonfire popped again, a spark landing between them. Neither moved to brush it away. Chapter 8. 3 a.m. Confessions. Some truths only live between heartbeats. Ellie. The rocks below Salt Haven Cliff. The tide was high, the world half drowned in moonlight. Ellie climbed down barefoot, the stones slick and cold beneath her feet. She told herself she only needed air, but she knew what she was really looking for. Finn was there already. Of course he was. Sitting on the same rock where they'd carved their initials years ago, E+F, the salt now whitening the edges like old bones. He didn't turn when she approached, just said quietly, "Couldn't sleep either?" She shook her head, breath misting in the cold. "You still come here?" He smiled without humor. "When I forget who I am, yeah." The ocean crashed close enough to wet their legs. For a long time neither spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It pulsed, raw, waiting. Then she said, "I broke it." He looked up. "What?" "The pendant. The night you stopped writing." Her voice trembled. "I threw it. I wanted to stop feeling everything. But I couldn't. I can't." Finn's jaw clenched. His scar burned crimson under the moon. "I know," he said finally. "I dove for it. Every shard. Cut my hands to blood." Ellie's breath hitched. "Why?" He turned toward her fully, eyes salt bright. "Because I couldn't stand to let the ocean take you too." The wind stole whatever came next. She felt the ache rise in her chest until it hurt to breathe. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "For what?" "Leaving. Not coming back. Making you carry all of it." He shook his head slowly. "You think I didn't want you to go? I wanted you to see the world, Elle. I just didn't know the price was losing the sound of your laugh." The words hit harder than the waves. She stepped closer. "I painted you. Every year, every time I forgot how your voice sounded." He laughed once, broken. "And I wrote you. Every time I forgot how silence felt." The ocean threw spray across their faces. She didn't wipe hers away. It might have been tears. "Do you still?" she began, but couldn't finish. He reached out, fingers brushing the sea glass pendant around her neck. "Still," he said simply. Her heart stuttered. The word was enough. She leaned in until their foreheads met, their breaths mixing with the sea. Every apology melted into the salt between them. When they kissed this time, it wasn't goodbye, it was coming home. And under them, the waves whispered the only benediction that ever mattered. Still. Chapter 9. Kintsugi Heart. We are what we mend with love. Finn, Salt Haven Workshop. The old boathouse smelled of cedar shavings and sea. Finn Callahan sat at his father's workbench, the pendant laid out before him like an autopsy of memory. The shards gleamed faintly, edges kissed with the same gold lacquer he used to seal cracked wood on the boat. He ran a thumb over one sliver. "You cut me once, and now you keep me together." Outside, gulls screamed against the wind. Inside, every heartbeat echoed louder than the waves. He'd spent the night after their confession collecting the broken glass from her palm where she'd held it too tight. She hadn't wanted him to fix it. She'd whispered, "Maybe some things are meant to stay shattered." He couldn't accept that, not when she had crossed 10 years of silence to come back. Now, gold threaded through green like veins of light. It was imperfect, uneven, and the most beautiful thing he'd ever made. Ellie, the pier, morning. Ellie waited by the railing, painting sunlight on water, each stroke catching in her throat. She hadn't slept. Her mind kept replaying his voice from the night before. Still. When she heard his boots on the boards, her brush slipped. He stopped beside her, holding the pendant cupped in his hands. The gold shimmered between his fingers. "You fixed it," she breathed. "Kintsugi," he said. "The Japanese mend broken things with gold. They say the cracks make it stronger." She reached out, trembling. "It's more beautiful now." "So are we," he said. Her laugh came out half-sob. "You really believe that?" He took her hand, turned it palm up. The scars on his fingers caught the light. "These healed," he said. "So can we." He placed the pendant back around her neck, fingers lingering just long enough for her heart to stumble. "You kept the pieces," she whispered. "You gave me the reason." Then, before she could blink, he dropped to one knee, not in show or ceremony, but in the quiet reverence of someone who'd already lost and found the same thing twice. He looked up, voice breaking soft as tidewater. "Ellie Harper, I don't have a ring, just this, but I've rebuilt every ruin you left in me into a cathedral for you. Come home?" Her chest caved in under the weight of everything she'd been waiting to hear. "Yes," she said, 1,000 times yes. When he rose, he kissed her, gold and salt between them. The pendant caught the sunrise, scattering light over both their faces. For the first time since 16, the horizon didn't look like goodbye. Epilogue. The lantern our daughter sets free. Salt Haven, summer 2036. The air smelled of pine and low tide, the kind of evening when the sea held its breath just before dusk. Ellie stood on the beach barefoot, her dress brushing the waterline, paint still on her knuckles. Beside her, Finn struck the match. The lantern shivered in the wind, thin paper glowing from within. Their daughter, May, watched with wide eyes, her hair tangled like seagrass. She was 10, the same age Ellie had been when she first started dreaming of drowning. "Can I let it go now?" May whispered. "Wait," Finn said softly. He slipped the gold-veined pendant from Ellie's neck and looped it around their daughter's small hand, so it knows where to come back. The lantern trembled, ready to rise. Ellie swallowed hard. Don't cry in front of her. But tears blurred the horizon anyway. "Your grandfather used to say the ocean remembers everything, even the things we try to forget." May looked up, serious. "Will it remember us?" Ellie met Finn's eyes. "Always," his look said. Out loud he answered, "Only the good parts." May smiled, lifted the lantern, and released it. The flame flickered, caught the breeze, and the paper ballooned upward, slow at first, then sure. They watched it climb past the dark line of the sea, rising into a sky freckled with stars. Ellie felt Finn's arm around her waist, solid and warm. His heartbeat pressed into her ribs. 16 feels like a lifetime ago," she whispered. "It was, and somehow it's also now." She leaned against him, eyes still on the light growing smaller and smaller above the waves. The wind shifted, pine and diesel again, but this time it didn't pull her under. It simply carried the scent of home. May ran ahead, chasing the lantern's reflection in the water. Her laughter rang clear, bright, untouched by the ache that had built this family. Finn kissed Ellie's temple. "She's got your courage." "No," Ellie said, smiling through tears. "She's got our second chance." The lantern dwindled to a spark, then vanished into the dark. But they didn't look away, because for once the sky had kept what it was given. And below it, on the shore of Salthaven, 2 souls who'd been 16 forever finally exhaled.